Sound of a pilot's strained breathing through an oxygen mask. The low thrum of engines. It's 1943. High over Germany. The hiss of oxygen is the only sound inside Hauptmann Egon Mayer's cockpit. His fingers, stiff with cold, rest lightly on the stick. The gauges on his Focke-Wulf's dash tremble, vibrating with the power of the engine. Below, the Earth is a distant, hazy map. Ahead, the sun is a blinding glare. He squints, scanning the empty blue, expecting to find a few scattered stragglers, easy prey. But then he sees it. Not a handful of bombers, but a wall. A city in the sky. It's a vision from a nightmare, a moving fortress of silver shapes, staggered in impossibly tight box formations. The sun doesn't just reflect. It glints, flashing off dozens upon dozens of gun barrels. A cold knot forms in his stomach. This isn't a flock of sheep waiting for the slaughter. These American four-engined bombers, they refuse to act like prey. This is the heart of the air war. A brutal high-stakes gamble played out at 30,000 feet. On one side, the United States Army Air Forces. They believe in a radical new doctrine. Daylight precision bombing. They're convinced their fleets of bombers can fly deep into the Reich, surgically remove its war machine, its factories, its refineries, and win the war from the air. Their weapon of choice? The B-17 Flying Fortress? On the other side, the German Luftwaffe. Men like Hauptmann Meyer, who look at these aerial armadas and see not an invincible force, but a target-rich environment. They believe they can tear these formations apart, bleed them dry with cannon and machine gun fire long before they ever see their targets. Their mission is simple: defend the homeland at all costs. To understand this clash, you have to understand the B-17. It wasn't just an airplane. It was an icon, a symbol of American industrial might. Its four massive Wright Cyclone engines were fitted with turbo-superchargers, complex mechanical lungs that allowed them to breathe in the thin, frigid air of the stratosphere, lifting over 60,000 pounds of machine, men, and bombs to altitudes where fighters struggled to perform. It was designed for one thing: survival. Its skin was peppered with armor plates, shielding the crew and vital components. Its fuel tanks were lined with self-sealing rubber, designed to swallow machine gun rounds and close the wounds. The pilots had redundant control cables, so if one was shot away, another might hold. Its wings, broad and incredibly strong, could absorb staggering amounts of punishment and still carry the crew home. They called it the Flying Fortress for a reason, and that reason bristled from every angle. It was a hive of 50 caliber machine guns, 13 of them on the later models. From the nose, the tail, the top turret, the belly ... and the ball turret. Imagine being 19 years old, curled into a plexiglass sphere slung beneath the bomber. The world is a dizzying blur of sky and earth below you. You are the most exposed man in the formation, a human gun sight, scanning the void for the tiny black specks that will soon become wolves. Above you, in the relative comfort of the cockpit, the lead navigator, maybe a 22-year-old who was in college a year ago, traces a thin pencil line across his map. Today's destination, Schweinfurt, the black heart of Germany's ball-bearing production. Without ball bearings, tanks don't roll, and planes don't fly. The stakes couldn't be higher. And on the ground, a German Staffelkapitän is briefing his pilots. His voice is hard, urgent. "Forget the tail," he tells them. "A tail approach is suicide. You will be chewed up by their 50 cals. We attack from the front. 12 o'clock high. Head-on passes. You will have 2 seconds to fire. Aim for the cockpit. Aim for the wing roots. Break their will. They know the odds." A head-on attack is a game of chicken played at a combined speed of over 600 miles per hour. But it's their only chance to shatter the bomber box. The German fighters climb, clawing their way up to meet the silver tide. The bomber crews wait, eyes straining, hearts pounding a frantic rhythm against their ribs. The tension is a physical thing, a tightening in the chest. Then a voice crackles over the intercom. "Bandits, 12 o'clock high," and the sky explodes. The first Focke-Wulfs slash down through the formation like sharks. A storm of tracers, red and white, laces the air between the planes. The world becomes a terrifying chaos of noise and vibration. AB-17 to the left shudders violently as cannon shells rip into its number 2 engine. A plume of black smoke erupts, followed by the telltale feathering of the propeller as the pilot shuts it down. The plane lurches, momentarily falling out of step, but it doesn't break. It holds its place. The formation holds. And from every window, every turret, the guns are still talking. The silence of the upper sky is a lie. 8 miles above occupied Europe, the air crackles with danger. First, it's the flak. Dark puffs of smoke, seemingly harmless from a distance, bloom closer and closer. They climb in steps, a lethal staircase laid out by unseen gunners on the ground, each explosion a steel fist punching the thin aluminum skin of the bomber. Your B-17 shudders, a jolt that runs from the tail right through to the pilot's seat. On the radio, voices are clipped, professional. Bandits, 10 o'clock high, contrails once just frozen vapor now weave into shimmering walls. They are the signatures of enemy fighters, the Luftwaffe, rising to meet you. This is where the theory of the combat box becomes brutal reality. Imagine a formation of bombers, not just flying together, but interlocking their fields of fire. The tail gunner of the plane ahead covers your nose. The top turret of the plane below protects your belly. The waist gunners on your left and right create a wall of 50 caliber fire. From every angle, chin, cheek, top, tail. And belly machine guns create overlapping arcs. A moving fortress of lead designed to punish any lone attacker foolish enough to wander into the kill zone. It's a porcupine of guns, and you are one of its quills. But the German pilots are learning. They felt the sting of this fortress, and they are adapting. They know attacking from the rear is a suicide run against the tail and top turrets, so they changed tactics. Formations of Messerschmitt Bf 109s and Focke-Wulf 190s peel off, massing for head-on attacks. They fly straight at you, a deadly game of chicken at a combined speed of over 600 miles per hour. The bomber's silhouette is widest from the front, offering a bigger target, but the closing speed is terrifying, giving gunners mere seconds to react. Cannon shells, bright and sparkling, flash against the plexiglass nose. It's a terrifying sight, a stream of fire aimed directly at the pilots and bombardier. The early B-17 models, the E and F variants, were horribly vulnerable to these attacks. It was a lesson paid for in blood, a lesson that led directly to the later B-17G model with its life-saving chin turret finally giving the bomber teeth to bite back from the front. Inside the plane, the world is a chaos of sensation. The air is thin and freezing, so cold that the oil in the machine guns can turn to sludge. A gunner frantically works the charging handle, trying to clear a jam, his breath misting in the -40-degree air. Sunlight streams through a window, slowly thawing the frost on a frozen gun barrel. The sharp, acrid smell of cordite from the firing guns fills the nose compartment, a smell you'll never forget. The plane bucks violently as another flak shell explodes nearby, and the navigator's grease pencil lifts off his map, drifting in a moment of 0G before clattering to the floor. The Luftwaffe keeps innovating. Some fighters now carry massive, ungainly 21-centimeter rockets slung under their wings. They don't even need to aim for a single plane. They fire them from a distance into the heart of the combat box, hoping the massive explosion will blow a hole in the formation, breaking it apart so individual bombers can be picked off. Yet the bombers endure. German after-action reports are filled with a sense of disbelief, almost astonishment. They write of American bombers absorbing hundreds of cannon and machine gun hits, fires breaking out on wings, and yet they somehow hold formation. They report seeing B-17s with 2 of their 4 engines feathered, trailing smoke, turning back asterisk towards asterisk the target, refusing to give up the mission. Riddled with holes, with crew members wounded or worse, they just keep flying. A testament to the sheer toughness of the machine and the grit of the young men inside. And the stakes are only getting higher. This isn't just a random raid. A calm voice cuts through the static on the command channel, directing the formation leader. The names are spoken with grim purpose, targets deep in the heart of Germany. Places the Luftwaffe has sworn to protect at any cost. Primary target, Schweinfurt. Another day, another voice, just as determined. Primary target, Regensburg. The ball-bearing factories. The aircraft plants, the industrial heart of the enemy war machine. And between you and that target lies the entire furious might of the German Air Force. The sky ahead is no longer empty. It is full of climbing, diving, and firing fighters, a swarm of fury that you must fly through. The year is 1943. The thin, freezing air high over the Reich is a crucible, a place where awe and horror bleed into one. For the young men of the U.S. 8th Air Force, this is the ultimate test. The promise of precision bombing is about to be paid for in blood and aluminum. August 17th, a double strike. 2 sprawling formations of B-17, Flying fortresses lumber towards their targets. The ball-bearing factories at Schweinfurt and the Messerschmitt aircraft plant at Regensburg. Inside these bombers, it's a world of contradictions. The sky outside is a brilliant crystalline blue, but inside, it's a frigid hell. Oxygen masks cling to faces, frosted with every breath. The roar of the engines is a constant bone-jarring companion. And then, the German controllers begin their deadly symphony. On the ground, voices calmly vector waves of interceptors. Acton, Dick Autos. Cours null noon null. Attention, big cars, course 090. Suddenly the sky erupts. Black puffs of flak appear from nowhere, blossoming like deadly flowers, peppering the sky and rocking the bombers with violent concussions. Through the chaos, the Luftwaffe fighters slash in. Messerschmitt 109s and Focke-Wulf 190s, flown by men just as young, just as determined. They roll through flaming debris, through the very ghosts of bombers that have already disintegrated. For the American gunners, it's a whirlwind of flashing wings and tracer rounds. You track a target, squeeze the trigger, and pray. You watch a friendly bomber just off your wing suddenly blossom into a fireball, spewing bodies and wreckage into the void. Then you swing your guns back around, because another enemy is boring in. The Germans are learning, evolving. Pilots like Egenmeyer perfect the terrifying head-on attack, a high-stakes game of chicken at a combined closing speed of over 600 miles per hour. The goal is to shatter the cockpit, to decapitate the fortress before it can even defend itself. The 12.7mm machine guns of the B-17s blaze away, creating a wall of lead, but the German fighters press their attacks with suicidal courage. Then comes October 14th. It will be forever known as Black Thursday. Another raid on Schweinfurt. This time, the resistance is even more ferocious. The Luftwaffe throws everything it has at the American formations. The losses are staggering. 60 bombers, 600 men are swatted from the sky. The bomber stream becomes a river of fire and falling metal. Yet, amidst the carnage, there are moments of astonishing survival that leave even veteran German pilots speechless. A fortress, its tail section shredded to ribbons by cannon fire, somehow holds formation, its pilots wrestling with the controls. In another, a nose gunner is killed instantly at his post, slumping over his guns, while his crewmates, separated by a thin metal bulkhead, keep firing, oblivious to his fate until much later. One pilot is forced to fly from the co-pilot's seat. The left side of his cockpit, a mangled ruin of torn aluminum and frost, the controls barely responding. The myth of the self-defending bomber is hardening under fire, but it's also cracking. The Germans are developing new tactics, new weapons. The idea of the Sturmstaffel begins to take shape. Heavily armored FW-190s, armed with devastating 30mm cannons, designed not to dogfight but to batter the Wehrmachts, the four-engine bombers, at point-blank range. Their pilots are often told to ram the bombers if their guns fail. Precision bombing was a promise, but it's a promise paid for by teenagers sealed in aluminum tubes, fighting for their lives miles above a hostile continent. For the Luftwaffe, interception is an act of desperate courage, measured against rivers of tracer fire and the unrelenting advance of the bomber streams. The cost is staggering on both sides. As the survivors of Black Thursday limp back to England, two brutal lessons are learned. The Americans now know, with grim certainty, that their bombers cannot continue to fly this deep into Germany without fighter escorts to protect them all the way. And the Luftwaffe learns a frustrating truth of its own. Even a grievously wounded flying fortress, riddled with holes and trailing smoke, often has an uncanny ability to absorb punishment and, against all odds, still make it home. The war in the air has reached a knife's edge. Something has to give. The year is 1944. The awe of the great air fleets has faded, replaced by the grim mathematics of attrition. The duel over Europe is no longer about proving a point. It's about breaking the enemy's will, one sortie, one factory, one life at a time. The momentum shifts, and the 8th Air Force plunges into a furnace called Big Week. The targets are the heart and lungs of the German war machine. Aircraft factories in Leipzig, assembly plants in Brunswick, ball-bearing works in Schweinfurt. Day after day, the B-17s rise, their formations tightening, pushing deeper into hostile skies. This is a new kind of war. The B-17G model now bristles with defiance, its new chin turret spitting. 50 caliber rounds, deterring the head-on attacks that once shredded formations. Gunners squint through improved sights, their world a terrifying ballet of black crosses and tracer fire. But the real game changer isn't just on the fortress. It's screaming down from the sun. The cavalry has arrived. Long-range escorts, sleek P-51 Mustangs and P-47 Thunderbolts now have the legs to go all the way to the target and back. For the bomber crews, the sight of those little friends weaving a protective shield around them is a lifeline, a trumpet call that signals they are no longer alone in the deep. But as the Americans press their advantage, the Luftwaffe answers with desperate fury. They throw everything they have at the bomber streams. Formations are rocked by the blast of Werfer Granite 21 rockets, crude but terrifying air-to-air mortar that streak through the sky, designed to break up the tight defensive boxes. Elite Sturmgruppen pilots, flying heavily armored Focke-Wulf 190s, close to ramming distance, their 30mm cannons firing Minengesauce shells devastating rounds that can tear a wing off a fortress with a single explosive hit. Inside the B-17, the world shrinks to a claustrophobic cage of aluminum and plexiglass. A co-pilot watches in frozen horror as the wing of the bomber next to him simply folds upwards, a graceful, silent gesture of death before it cartwheels into the abyss. In the top turret, a gunner traverses his twin machine guns, the barrels glowing, almost too hot to touch, as he tries to track a dozen threats at once. From the other side, a German pilot, his sights lined up on the fat belly of a bomber, is suddenly stunned as a flight of Mustangs dives out of the glare. Their guns winking, punishing his attack with lethal precision. Every second is a lifetime. The stakes are brutally simple and laid bare on the mission briefing maps. Oil refineries, synthetic fuel plants, industrial centers. These are not just names. They are the choke points of the Third Reich. Destroy them, and the panzers stop rolling, the fighters stay grounded. The American strategy is relentless, a steamroller of industrial might. While the Luftwaffe bleeds its irreplaceable veterans, men who have been fighting for years, the United States replaces its lost crews and shattered machines at a rate that seems inhuman to those on the receiving end. For every B-17 that falls, 2 more seem to rise in its place, flown by young men fresh from training fields in Texas and Arizona. The pressure intensifies, building towards a moment that feels both inevitable and impossible. Winter gives way to a cold spring. The losses are staggering, but the bombers keep coming. And then, a new name appears on the briefing boards, a name spoken in hushed, anxious tones. A target that represents the ultimate objective, the very heart of the enemy. High above the clouds, a massive formation gathers, contrails arching like chalk lines drawn across a darkening map of Europe. They are heading east, deeper than ever before. They are going to Berlin. The skies over Germany, March 1944. A new sound fills the air. A different kind of roar mixed with the familiar drone of the fortresses. For the first time, American P-51 Mustangs, sleek and silver, escort the bombers all the way to the heart of the Reich, Berlin. This wasn't just another raid. It was a declaration. The era of the unescorted bomber, of desperate, lonely battles against swarms of fighters, was ending. For the Luftwaffe pilots rising to intercept, the sight was a profound shock. The little friends, as the bomber crews called them, had arrived, and they changed everything. The B-17s, however, still had to endure the gauntlet. Imagine being a German fighter pilot, lining up your attack run. You pour cannon shells into a fortress, watching huge chunks of its wing tear away. Smoke billows from an engine. By all logic, it should fall from the sky. But it doesn't. It holds formation. Its gunners, freezing in the thin, cold air, continue to track you, their tracers reaching out. You see another fortress, its tail shredded, looking more like a skeleton than an aircraft, yet its bomb bay doors grind open, and its payload falls true right on the factories below. This was the sight that began to break the will of the Luftwaffe. They were fighting not just a machine, but an idea of resilience built from aluminum and sheer human grit. This legendary toughness was born on the drawing boards at Boeing. The B-17 was over-engineered, a complex web of redundant systems and structural strength. But design alone wasn't enough. It was the crew's discipline, the unwavering belief in formation doctrine, flying so close that your wingtip almost touched your neighbors, that created a defensive hedgehog of 50 caliber machine guns. This combination of rugged design and human courage made the B-17 stubborn beyond all expectation. It wasn't invincible, far from it. The cost was staggering. The empty bunks in English airbases after raids on Schweinfurt and Regensburg were silent testaments to the price of daylight bombing. Every gun position held a life, a story, a family waiting back home. The fortress's toughness didn't prevent loss. It simply gave its crew a fighting chance where none should have existed. As the war progressed, missions turned to the synthetic oil plants at places like Luna, the lifeblood of the German war machine. Raid after raid hammered these facilities. Formations were torn apart by flak so thick you could almost walk on it, yet they reformed. Damaged bombers, shepherded by their fighter escorts, limped home on 2 engines, sometimes 1. The synergy was complete. Boeing's rugged design, the crew's iron discipline, the rigid formation doctrine, and now, finally, the protective umbrella of long-range fighters. This combination turned the awe-inspiring spectacle of the B-17 into devastating strategic effect. It crippled the Reich's industry and broke the back of its daylight air defense. The final verdict on the flying fortress often came from those who faced it. After the war, some German pilots wrote about their experiences, their initial contempt turning into a grudging, profound respect. They confessed that attacking a B-17 formation felt less like aerial combat and more like assaulting a flying citadel. The name Flying Fortress was no mere propaganda. It was a reality earned in blood and fire, thousands of feet above a hostile continent. It was a testament to the idea that when innovative design is paired with incredible human courage and the willingness to adapt, history can be changed. The story of the B-17 is just one of many where engineering, bravery, and strategy converged to decide the outcome of the war. There are countless other untold histories waiting to be explored, from the cockpit of a fighter to the gunner's seat of a tank. If you want to discover more of these incredible stories that put you right in the heart of the action, subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.